And welcome to Cold War Radio Live, ladies and gentlemen. Your number one source for government and political talk anywhere, coming to you from the Steel City Resistance Studio in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr., deep down in the broadcast bunker. And from Ice Station North Studio here on Nordic Monday, somewhere on the Norwegian Sea, let's welcome Radio Norway to the program. Come in, Radio Norway.
Good evening, Hutch, and good evening to our lovely, intelligent, and informed audience. It's 35.6 degrees Fahrenheit here, and we have the first snow for the winter in gale force winds, and several mountain passes closed. So, wow. If I disappear, it's because my internet is gone. It's I think it's running on duct tape right now.
That sounds pretty good tonight, so doing something right over there. Please follow me on Spreaker, ladies and gentlemen. Like the Facebook page, facebook.com/Cold War Radio 22. You can catch the show via podcast on your Roku, via Blueberry or YouTube. You can check it out at the405media.com in Los Angeles. Cold War Radio is an iHeartRadio program, and we also have a Cold War Radio app that is free in your app store. You can catch the show on Spotify, iTunes. Please email the show at hutch@steelcityresistance.com. The Cold War Radio Patron hotline, 412-567-1460 if you'd like to join the program. The chat room is up on Spreaker, like Norway said, the best place to be. Please go to steelcityresistance.com and catch the research room. And more importantly, over in the right-hand margin, become a Cold War Radio patron. Cold War Radio. All right, ladies and gentlemen, a lot going on, a whole lot. There's something is in the air, and I'll get to that as we move along through the program here, but I have a lot of examples of things happening, and one of the things, Norway, that amazes me, I mean, I guess it doesn't amaze me, but it just seems that for some reason we don't pass things down to newer generations, because the arguments that I'm hearing today are the very exact same arguments that you heard 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 25 years ago. I mean, they recycle the same old things, and the only chance they have of succeeding is one of two. I mean, you have the hardcore communist left adults, but then you have the gullible children, and they go after these kids. I want you to listen to a clip on MSNBC, a formerly powerful network subsidiary of NBC. I want you to listen to Chris Matthews and his interpretation of Republicans.
Accusations, or shouldn't have to back up their accusations with
how do you
evidence.
Begin to back up an accusation of something that took place 40 years ago? That's impossible. And the idea that you're going to go and ask people who had a party, I can't remember parties that I went to 40 years ago. None of us can. But she would. It makes much more sense that she would remember, because she's the one who was sexually assaulted.
There's a big line between what Jonas said was you don't accept as absolute fact what somebody charges. But there's something in the Republican conversation last week which is different than that. There's sort of an I Love Lucy era thinking about women and the way they're portrayed on television. First of all, plow through it.
Honey, I'm home.
And this idea that they're ditzy or confusing. I like the way that Nikki Haley the other day, when somebody called her confused, she said, I don't get confused. I think this idea that women are confused or mistaken, as Orrin Hatch put it, is really a problem for the Republicans.
But for precisely that reason, I think that the idea that women can't back up their claims, or that their claims can't stand some sunlight, is insulting.
And this is why Thursday is going to be an impossible moment for this country and our politics. I just fully believe that, unfortunately. Left order.
Thursday's not going to be anything. That lady's not even going to come to Washington. It's unbelievable. They set you up for these false, situations where Thursday, everything's coming out Thursday. It'll be another dud.
Thursday or Monday or, I mean, any day of the week. And it's absolutely, if our very existence wasn't at stake, this would be absolute circus. It would be so hilarious that we could roll around on the floor laughing our ass off. But, this is our existence we're talking about here. And like you say, the kids, they are victims in this. They are absolutely bashed with this BS 24/7, and it's absolutely sickening.
I'll tell you something. I want to bring us back to what I just said. I want to bring us back to 1987, and I want you to hear the same. These are Democrats. These are Americans that people elected. These Democrats, and I don't know if they elect them and forget them or what. But this guy I'm getting ready to play murdered a woman. Murdered a woman, and came out of it as the Lion of the Senate. And I'll tell you, he's one of the most damaging people in the history of the United States of America. He is the sole reason that we have illiterate Mexicans running around this country all over in every damn town, because he changed the immigration laws in 1965. Let's listen to Ted Kennedy when they were going through the Robert Bork Supreme Court of the United States hearing.
In Robert Bork's America, there is no room at the inn for blacks and no place in the Constitution for women. And in our America, there should be no seat on the Supreme Court for Robert Bork. Mr. Bork has been equally extreme in his opposition to the right to privacy. In an article in 1971, he said, in effect, that a husband and wife have no greater right to privacy under the Constitution than a smokestack has to pollute the air. What I hear you're saying here now is that the test that was used about 90 years ago, and which was the basis for discrimination against women, is the standard that you would use. You may be able to elaborate on it, but that's at least what I'm hearing.
Murdered a woman, Norway.
Yeah, I mean, this is Teddy Kennedy, the so-called Lion of the Senate, who protected his girlfriend by driving her into a lake and then running home, changing clothes, and getting himself an alibi while she was slowly suffocating in that wreck. And in 1987, Reagan put forth Robert Bork, a brilliant originalist juror, that is one that believed in the original interpretation of the Constitution. And here we heard Teddy Kennedy denounce Robert Bork, and it's the same old tired show that we see in Washington today.
Yeah, and it's working.
Just a few years later, 4 years later, you had Clarence Thomas nominated for Supreme Court Justice, and the Democrats dug up this Anita Hill. I don't know if you remember that. Absolutely. Anita Hill story, law professor.
Pubic hair on a Coke can.
Yeah, exactly. And they completely rewritten the history about Clarence Thomas and Anita Hill.
If you remember that too, it's actually worse than that pubic hair. Because if you think back, right in the middle of the Senate hearing, I mean, this guy's family's watching and everything. This Anita Hill brings up that he was making suggestions. There was a porn star in the 70s named Long Dong Silver. And they actually said that Clarence Thomas brought that up to Anita Hill. Now, I'll tell you, you look at Clarence Thomas and a more decent man, there's not as many as him. There's not very many. And to do that the same way with this, what they're doing with Kavanaugh now it's getting even worse, Norway. Now we're moving into gang rapes and things like, just stuff that's unimaginable, and they ought to make them take the honorable away from their title. In the United States, when you talk to these, it's the honorable who's so-and-so or the honorable senator. It's utterly sickening. And I'll be honest, I don't think I'm getting off track here, but that's the way I go. I think, I honestly do, when you ponder everything that's going on right now, and you look at how you were 2 years ago and how you are now, I think the Democrats are going to get crushed. I don't see this unless Grassley and Mitch McConnell are on the other side and they don't allow this confirmation hearing to go forward. If the confirmation hearing does not go forward before the midterms, the Republicans are dead. Because people will stay home. They'll say, for what? Why should I go out?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the latest polls show that the Republicans, first of all, the Republicans, because of Trump, I would claim, you have, of course, the around 10% never-Trumpers in the Republican Party doing everything they can to sabotage the Trump movement. But, you know, you have a lot of good Republicans, and they had collected, I think it was, off the top of my head, it's 2:46 a.m. in the morning here, but I think it was $110 million for the campaigning, and that was more than twice as much as the Democrats. That in and of itself, I think, is a good indication that Trump's message, it has been heard, and people are backing him up. And, you know, things out in the various states point in the direction that the midterms can actually become a red tsunami. But the rhinos in the House and in the Senate, they have the chance now to completely reverse that red tsunami and make it a blue tsunami. It's just keep it up. Don't confirm Kavanaugh. Just keep it up. Just pretend that you're defending women, which they're not. Because if they were defending women, they would have confirmed Kavanaugh a long time ago. So keep it up. If you want to lose this election, if you want to be kicked out of the United States Congress, keep it up.
Now, there's other signs also. Fahrenheit 11/9 was a new film that Michael Moore put out, and it limped to an 8th place finish in North America with $3.1 million from 1,700 theaters. Pre-release tracking had suggested at least $5 million to $6 million. Moore's satirical anti-Trump film marks the first release from Tom Ortenberg's new company, Briarcliff. Ortenberg worked with Moore on Fahrenheit 9/11. So, you know, they think it worked the first time, so we're going to try it again. And now it didn't work this time. Maybe this, by the way, that Robert Bork hearing turned the word bork into a verb.
Yeah, that's right. Borking.
Yeah, to get borked. And that's what they're trying to do to Kavanaugh. And wouldn't it be great if it backfired and didn't work and some Democrats voted for him? But we'll see. Now, there's another development. Norway, the acting or the assistant attorney general, Rosenstein, has said that he's going to resign. This is the story. The story keeps changing, but he has said that he was going to tender his resignation, but can't do it until Trump gets back into Washington. So he's kind of like a dead man walking right now, if that story's true. But it immediately triggered results with the leftists. And you can see what a darling to them that he has been going forward. They're a little worried. So let's listen to a couple lawmakers' takes on that.
And there are so many conversations as to whether he resigns, if he is to go, or is fired, and how that affects who could be appointed to take over some or all of his jobs. I want to bring in Adam Schiff, who, as the ranking Democrat on House Intelligence, has faced a lot of conflict with Republicans on the House side over how the Mueller probe is going to be independent or not be independent. What are the risks do you see for the Mueller probe if Rosenstein leaves?
Well, first of all, Rod Rosenstein should under no circumstances resign. If the president intends to obstruct justice, Rosenstein should require him to be fired. He shouldn't take a step affirmatively and essentially let the president off the hook. This looks to me like a slow-moving Saturday night massacre. It seems like the only question is whether these steps take place now or they take place after the midterms when the president believes he'll pay less of a political price for it. But the fact that these steps, the firing of Comey, pushing out Rod Rosenstein, whether it's done now or later, the firing of the Attorney General apparently seems contemplated after the election. These are, in their cumulative form, the same as the Saturday Night Massacre, and all designed for the same end, and that is to give the president direct control over investigation in which he may be implicated. So I don't think that under any circumstances that Rod Rosenstein should tender his resignation. I also think that in the event that the president fires him, it is another piece of substantial evidence. It is the second exhibit after the firing of Comey in a potential obstruction case that Bob Mueller may be putting together.
You know, this guy's one of the most sleazy guys that I've ever seen in Congress. This Adam Schiff, obviously, of course, he's from California, a California Democrat.
And he goes by the nickname Full of for a certain good reason. So, I mean, it's fantastic. I think if I'm not mistaken, Schiff and Nadler, which is on the next clip, they were both on their high horses when James Comey tried to score some cheap points by actually reading some of the crimes of Hillary Clinton and at the same time not indicting her. So it's ridiculous.
Now Nadler, the guy you're talking about, he must have the same doctor as Al Sharpton, because he used to be as big and fat as Al Sharpton was, and he had jowls that I've never seen on a human being. He had jowls hanging out under from both jaws that were wider than his head. And he went to some kind of surgeon because he's all tight now. I mean, I couldn't believe it when I saw him. I was like, man, he had some surgery. Let's listen to Jerry Nadler, another disgusting Democrat from New York.
Not sure exactly what road we're going to be walking down or reporting on in the next few minutes. Great to see you, Gloria. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Joining me right now, a very important voice in the next steps ahead. Democratic Congressman Jerry Nadler of New York. He is the top Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee. Congressman, thank you so much for being here. Completely different topic than I thought we would likely be discussing.
Yes.
What's your reaction just in what we're watching play out right now?
Well, it's very upsetting. This is the next step in a slowly evolving, slow-motion Saturday Night Massacre in which the president is getting rid of all the people who were involved in,
it's in the script.
That's one.
Initiating or carrying out the investigation of obstruction of justice by him.
Do you have any word yet if there's conversations about a resignation or a firing?
I have no information other than what I'm hearing from CNN and other news sources.
We're happy to help wherever we can, but we would love to know from you.
This started with the firing of Comey, the firing of McCabe, the incessant attacks on the Attorney General Sessions, the incessant attacks on the FBI, on people like Bruce Orr, on others, the incessant attacks on the institutions that we depend on to do our police work and to protect the integrity of our system. And this is, I think, just another step in the unfolding slow-motion Saturday Night Massacre. And it all started, remember, the New York Times article from last week about whether he did or did not suggest
wiring.
But all of that was in the context of Rosenstein's initiating what became an investigation of possible obstruction of justice by the president, and in that initiation being in the immediate aftermath of the firing of Comey, which was seen as which I think is a part of that obstruction. So all of this flows from that, and this looks like another step designed to frustrate or even shut down an to obstruct the investigation.
So, I mean, these guys are on the same tune.
Yeah, hey, Hutch. Let me read you a short paragraph that was published on November 14th, 2016 in the New York Daily News. A top New York Democrat called on President Obama on Monday to fire FBI Director James Comey over his decision to reopen the Hillary Clinton server probe just days before the election. Representative Gerald Nadler of Manhattan accused Comey of putting his finger on the scale in the race when he, on October 28th, reopened the probe into Clinton's use of a private server after discovering a trove of new emails belonging to Wiener's estranged wife, Uma Abedin. I mean, there you have it.
Yeah.
He is accusing the president now for firing Comey, which he actually asked President Obama to do.
Now, I have one more here from Senator Merkley. I think I'm going to let that one ride. We've had enough. It basically just says that Rosenstein's ouster could deeply compromise Congress getting the details of Mueller's investigation, so we'll just pass on that. But I have some good news, Norway. Ilsen Harbar, the career paralegal caught on a Project Veritas video sting on the deep state that was released last week, is no longer with the Department of Justice, a DOJ source confirmed to Breitbart News. Now, the only thing wrong with that is in an earlier time in our history, more would have happened to her for what she did. I mean, that was a left-wing communist infiltration of our government, and she should be treated like the traitor she is.
Yeah, I mean, Alison Rabar, she was doing work for the Democratic Socialists of America on the taxpayer dime.
Is her name Allison? And my program just dropped the A off.
Yeah, it was Alison Rabar, or however you pronounce that. I agree with you. It's really troubling if this is all the consequences that case will get, that she gets fired and nothing more happens. I mean, the entire DOJ should be turned inside out and upside down and shaken until all these rotten apples fall out.
And really, Norway, not just the DOJ, every federal agency that is based in D.C.
Absolutely.
Let's welcome Carrie to the program from Florida. Good evening, Carrie. What's on your mind tonight?
Mr. Bailey, Mr. Viking, good evening. Wonderful show as always.
Evening.
I wanted to encourage you all, because that's what I do. I want to remind everyone that the easiest way to point out and draw out the fake, the fraud, the counterfeit is to give the fake and fraud and counterfeit the ability or opportunity to perform the duties of whatever office they are impersonating fraudulently and faking to be. Okay? Keep that in mind. Now, first thing, explain to me, how can anyone be blamed how can they blame President Trump for anyone quitting or resigning? Because that's what all the original Rosenstein's post was about. He was going to resign. So how is that President Trump's fault? And how is the man deciding to resign? That was their story. How is that President Trump's fault, or what did President Trump have to do with that? Absolutely nothing. It's semantics. So that tells you right there that he's got something to hide. He knows he's on the hot seat. Why is he on the hot seat? Because of what his response was to that story. He did not deny saying any of it. Whether or not the person was joking by saying, hey, I know a good one, let's go, I'm going to wear a wire and then go in and record the President of the United States, and I know they won't check me because, well, I'm the number one guy now. That is why he's being looked at. That's the trouble that he's in, is because, again, you don't joke about this kind of stuff. So there's the fake and fraud and counterfeit.
Absolutely.
Now, go back real quick and remember the quick timeline. The tweet heard around the world. You remember that? Obama wiretapped my lines. That was President Trump getting ahead of everything that we're seeing now almost 2 years later.
Yeah, they made a fool out of him too. I mean, the more time that goes by, Kerry, if you look at the way the president has behaved, if you will, in this past 2 years, very flamboyant, outspoken every day, but now we're getting down to serious time. And the guy's chilling like a popsicle, man. He's sitting back there.
Why? Because the plan is coming all together. Okay? Now, that was the beginning of it. Here's what I believe and what I've learned through research. Q, everybody knows Q. Q is not an individual. Q is military intelligence. And if you all remember, a couple of years back, I told you all Flynn wasn't done with. Well, guess what? Flynn's not done with. Q keeps mentioning Flynn. Who is Flynn? Flynn was
military
at the
intelligence.
highest, some of the highest levels of military intelligence. I believe that they saw what was going to happen in the election. Okay, they went to President Trump and said, "President Trump, here are all the bad guys. We must win." That's why he did all of those rallies. He knew exactly what was going on. He knew the outcome. They knew that they were going to win. They did everything. Who's they? The military intelligence did everything to shut down and stop all the crooked Democratic voting machines, this, that, and the other. We let the vote decide, and we won. If you go back, and I'm going to encourage your listening audience, go back and go to TubeU and type in Trump's inaugurational speech. It's 17 minutes long. He tells everybody. He was basically telling the swamp, we are putting you in prison. Go back and listen to it. We are putting you back in charge. I didn't do it for me. The establishment has ruled over you all long enough. You the people, we the people are in charge now. That's what we're doing. That was one of the first lines he said in his inaugurational address. Please go back and find it on TubeU. Then, who was it that that tweet was in March? When did the Russia probe start? May or April? April, May, somewhere up in there. Who was put in charge of and before the Russia probe started, we got to come up with a reason to start the Russia probe. Whose recommendation was it to fire Comey? Why Rosenstein's? He wanted him the hell out of there. Now, back to my earlier statement when I said the easiest way to spot the fake and fraud is to give the fake and fraud the opportunity to do whatever it is the fake and fraud does. That's why Jeff Sessions recused himself. He wanted nothing to do with it. It was all a plan. Go ahead. You all are not dragging me down with this. I'm going to step to the side. Whatever you all decide to do, it's on you, not my decision. I've got other stuff to do, like get rid of these pedophiles, get rid of the gangs, and, oh, by the way, put together a case to put all of you criminals behind bars. Now, fast forward almost 2 years later, Sessions unrecuses himself, which, by the way, folks, he had to get the approval of the Supreme Court, which the Supreme Court said fine and dandy. Just so happens that it was by the same vote, probably, who appointed the next Supreme Court justice. Oh, well, President Trump. So he's got the votes to unrecuse himself. So now, here we are. They got nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. So now let's try to get Trump to fire me to make it look like he's a bad guy, and Trump doesn't do anything. All from a story that says that Rosenstein is going to resign. Again, folks, I ask you, how could it be Mr. Bailey's fault if the president of AT&T decides to resign? It's not. It's the individual's choice. This is over and done with, folks.
And I think the fact that President Trump announces that he's going to declassify
correct
a host of documents, including the fake fake FISA court orders which Rod Rosenstein signed himself. When he announced that, I think Rosenstein actually panicked and pulled the plug, and then the Democrats came in behind him and said, "You can't resign yet. Take a meeting with President Trump." And there you have the story today. Thanks for your call, Kerry.
What you're also, last point, and I'll go. What you're also overlooking is once Sessions unrecused himself, he's now in charge, not Rosenstein. Thank you for your time, gentlemen. Y'all have a great show.
Hey, thanks for calling, Kerry. All right, so there you go. Now, I want to go to Kerry's point, actually, Norway, a little bit here. I'm going to play a clip, and this is what I alluded to at the top of the show, that something's changing, and I think it's necessary for it to change. But I'm going to play a clip by a guy who was out of the limelight for quite some time and just recently came back. He was actually going to be on the program, and something happened and he fell out. I didn't see him after that. He agreed to it and everything, but he just never called up. Let's listen to a clip, and then I'm going to talk a little bit. Check this out.
Is anybody else out there getting a sick feeling about the Washington, D.C. Republicans? I am. This Kavanaugh Supreme Court nomination is beginning to stink like yet another Republican betrayal. They keep promising to confirm Kavanaugh, but they just don't get it done. I'm having a flashback to the Republicans promising over and over to defund and repeal Obamacare, and with the other hand, doing everything they needed to make sure it passed. As an American, I've had enough of Republican betrayals. They are snakes, and I suspect that Kavanaugh, an excellent Supreme Court candidate, is being sabotaged by the same Republicans who are promising to confirm him. That is how the D.C. Republicans operate. The symbol of the Washington, D.C. Republican Party should be a rattlesnake wearing a "Trust Me" sign. The battle for the Supreme Court is vital to the survival of American freedom. Kavanaugh should have been confirmed by now, but the Kavanaugh confirmation is beginning to smell just like the Obamacare betrayal. And I strongly suspect that those same Republicans are planning to sabotage President Trump in the same way, promising, Republican style, to support him all the way, and with the other hand, sticking a knife in his back when the time is right. It's time for the American people to start getting mean. For far too long, we have been acting like we are in a debate about constitutional freedom. We're not in a debate. We are in a knockdown, drag-out fight, and we need to start acting like it. The Washington, D.C. Republicans believe that they can betray us at will. That's because they have no fear of the American people. And that needs to change. This is Wild Bill for America. Thank you for watching, and America bless God again.
Now, that's so true, Norway. I mean, this is something that the reason that I bring this up, and in the chat room, it's Wild Bill for America. And I've met the guy. I mean, I don't know him real well, but I've met him. And he's a very staunch Christian. And I'll tell you, the reason that I played this clip is because I've been feeling this way too. That clip was made less than 20 hours after this clip was made.
Why should Congress obey the Constitution when there are no consequences if they violate it? Why should Hillary Clinton not be a criminal thug when she's never prosecuted for any of her crimes? Why should the Democrats not bring forth paid liars to ruin a man's life because Trump nominates him to office? There will be no consequences for the lady who's lying about rape. Whenever you hear a congressman say, "We must investigate," that means we must pretend to be doing something. And the American people are fed up with the lawlessness of Washington, D.C. Until we see Washington, D.C. officials being handcuffed and jailed, there is no justice in America. FBI agents are now committing espionage against our own president. A nation like that cannot survive. The greatest nation in world history has devolved into banana republic politics, and Washington, D.C. will never change until the American people force change. Washington has no fear of us. All we ever do is complain from our keyboards and occasionally hold a march where we conduct ourselves in a painfully polite manner and leave the place cleaner than it was when we got there. Wow, really scary people, aren't we? We finally have a president who's trying to do the right things for the right reasons, and the lawless of Washington, D.C. are fighting him every step of the way. We, the people, need to grow a whole new attitude. I was invited to be a speaker at one of those Washington rallies, and I turned him down. I told him I am tired of seeing Americans drive hundreds of miles to stand in the hot sun and be completely ignored. But I did tell him that I would attend a pitchforks and torches rally, and I suggested that we hold it at night and everybody pops off those big red traffic flares, lighting up Washington in red fire and smoke. I said that at a Tea Party rally, and sure enough, some lady piped up and said, "Oh, but somebody might get burned. Can't we just use little blinky lights?" Blinky lights. No wonder the bad guys have no fear. Enough of the painfully polite, ineffective rallies. If the American people don't start striking fear in the hearts of corrupt politicians, this nation is doomed. And here's a Wild Bill bullet of truth for America. If George Washington and Thomas Jefferson saw what we are seeing today, they wouldn't be holding rallies. They'd be building gallows. This is Wild Bill for America. Thank you for watching. And America, let's go.
Now, I'm going to go out on a limb and say I 100% agree with this guy. I think it is time. I've been to these rallies, and nothing ever does happen. And we conduct ourselves in a gentlemanly manner, and we get Jeff Flake, who consequently, incidentally said that he may vote. I've heard this story that he may vote president. I agree with Bill, and I think it's probably too late now. I mean, because you'll lose half the participants because the weather's going south. But I think it's time that we need to take the heat up a notch. I do. I don't see how, if we don't do that, I don't see how this is going to turn out right. I mean, not the things right in the immediate future, but I'm talking about long term. Trump's only one guy, man. I mean, and Mike Pence is no Donald Trump. So
no, Mike Pence is no Donald Trump, and I absolutely agree with Wild Bill for America here that if George Washington and Thomas Jefferson had seen what's going on in Washington now, they would have ordered the building of gallows because it's treason.
I've got laughed off the mic for saying that, but we have the weaponization of the strongest law enforcement arm in America against the Republicans, against patriotic Republicans.
Absolutely.
And we've got people in that interview when you heard Chris Matthews saying it was an I Love Lucy thing. Jonah Goldberg was on that panel on MSNBC. Jonah Goldberg, conservative from National Review or the Weekly Standard, one of them, probably both of them.
Absolutely not a peep. I mean,
right.
The problem here is we have to play Donald Trump's 3D chess, famous 3D chess. The problem here is that if this election turns out to become a blue tsunami instead of a red tsunami, it will undo everything that President Trump has done and everything that he's planning to do. So, however much we hate it, we got to root for the red team. We got to root for Republicans.
And I've said this before, and people can get mad at me if they want. It doesn't matter. That means even if it's a rhino.
Even if it's
a rhino, you vote for the rhino now, and we'll deal with them later. But it's a mathematics situation right now.
Absolutely, and I think when President Trump comes into his second period, because he is going to be re-elected in 2020, when he gets into his second term, things are going to change radically. And the Democrats know it. They know the heat has been turned up. It's not on full heat yet, but it's been turned up, and they can feel the flames licking their ass, and that's why they're ready to do anything they can, by all means necessary, as they say, BAMN, right. to sabotage Trump by proxy of the rhinos and the inept Republicans in the Congress.
Now, some good news from your region, sir. The second Swiss region has voted to ban the burqa. From Joshua Gill, religion reporter, St. Gallen became the second Swiss region to ban burqa-like face coverings in public on Sunday, highlighting rising tensions over integrating Islamic immigrants in Europe. A referendum on the ban saw a 36% turnout of St. Gallen's voters, two-thirds of whom approved the ban. The region is the second in Switzerland after Ticino to ban Islamic face coverings. Ticino approved a burqa ban in 2013, which went into effect 2016. So, are we waking up over there?
Switzerland is a very special country. Unfortunately, I wish that you could say this was the norm in Europe, or at least in Western Europe. We see a fantastic awakening in Eastern Europe. All the countries that was part of the Warsaw Pact.
Oh, I'm loving Hungary more each day.
Oh yeah, Hungary,
Poland,
Czechia, Poland. They're all banding together. Remember, these guys they lived from World War II until 1990s. They lived under the iron heel of communism, and they don't want to change communism for the and the freedom they found. They don't want to change that freedom into a caliphate, into Muslim rule. So they are resisting with all means.
And it makes you wonder. It makes you wonder what's wrong with France and England.
Oh yeah, France,
and Germany.
England, Germany, Sweden, Holland, you name it. Belgium, terrible. I mean, Belgium is a mini caliphate in Western Europe, and Western Europe is done for. The only way out I can see is that either we become Islamic, which means that I'm going to buy the first ticket I can get out of here to America. I know a few guys would root for that, but jokes aside, we can become Islamic, or we have to fight, and right. we'll have one hell of a civil war when we get to
win.
That point.
We will win.
Yeah,
I mean it's historic. Just look at history. Speaking of history, Norway, let's talk about the importance of freedom of the press.
Countless conservative and Christian voices are being censored on social media outlets. What happened? Are we as a society actually taking steps all the way back to pre-revolution times? Is that who we have become? Is this going to be the nation that we're going to hand to our children? You can speak, but only if you agree with me. And if your words hurt my feelings, it should be illegal for you to say them. It's our duty to carry the torch of liberty. I'm almost at the point of believing that the November elections are more important, or at least as important, as the 2016 election was. It's clear that with the rise of the American success in the past almost 2 years has also come an increased attack on our basic constitutional rights. If we do not take this fight to the polls this November, we are literally throwing away the gift Hamilton and Zenger and others passed on to us. A gift, mind you, they were willing to sacrifice their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor in order to bequeath to us. Should we not be willing to do the same for future generations? I'm going to close with another of Frederick Douglass's powerful words. For it is not light that is needed, but fire. It is not the gentle shower, but thunder. We need the storm, the whirlwind, and the earthquake. The feeling of the nation must be quickened. The conscience of the nation must be roused. The propriety of the nation must be startled. The hypocrisy of the nation must be exposed. And its crimes against God and man must be proclaimed and denounced. Yes, Frederick Douglass was talking about slavery at the time. It was the sin of the nation. But these words, these powerful words, can be applied to the sin of our nation today. Thank you for listening. God bless.
Fantastic, isn't it? This is an excerpt from our own History Bee, our own participant in the Spreaker chat, History Bee. She has a wonderful channel she started, and she's made 8 movies now, covering freedom of press, bulletproof Washington, our founders on voting, Constitutional Convention explained by History Bee, Noah Webster explained by History Bee, Valley Forge, Haim Salom, and Yankee Doodle Dandy. I mean, I absolutely love your videos, History Bee, and you have taught me so much that I didn't know about American history and why it is important to learn these momentous occasions in American history in order to survive in the future. So I posted a link in the Spreaker chat, and I say to all, go to her fantastic channel and subscribe and hit the bell so you get the notifications. I mean, these small 5 to 8 minutes videos, they are absolutely fantastic, and unfortunately we didn't have time for more than just an excerpt of one of her videos.
I think that maybe we ought to propose that maybe she wants a career in radio.
Absolutely.
I don't know maybe she wants to come on and be a co-host here. Excellent job, no doubt.
Absolutely.
Now,
absolutely. Fantastic.
Thank you, History Bee. Thank you very much. Good stuff. I didn't even know that till just now. They kept it from me, which is cool because it makes it more spontaneous. But in the event that Rosenstein would meet his demise, you know how many times we've been talking about Guttum 4 and 5 deep Norway when they tell us that there's no way that Trump could clean up this Department of Justice? Guess who number 3 is? Noel Francisco, a rock-ribbed conservative who would replace Rob Rosenstein. This is from the Daily Caller and Benny Johnson, reporter at large. Were Rosenstein to resign as Deputy Attorney General, the Department of Justice's rules of succession dictate that the Solicitor General, Noel Francisco, would assume his post pending President Donald Trump appointing someone outside the rules of succession. That is something that's good to hear. I mean, because now all it would take would be a double bam-bam firing, and you got a conservative in charge. Now, I have to admit, I'm not. I'm doing the audience a disservice because I'm not up to date with what Kerry brought to us and Sessions unrecusing himself. I have to do some mad research after the show, and I apologize for that. That one took me a little bit by surprise. So maybe this thing will fix itself. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, you have several possibilities here. You could get Francisco here, who is currently the 3rd highest ranking official in the DOJ. You could potentially get him taking over, and he is a veteran clerk of late Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia. So this is not a featherweight. I mean, this is a guy with some punch behind him, and I saw briefly before we came on here, Judge Andrew Napolitano. He said that tell you what, Donald Trump can do this. Tell you what Donald Trump can do if this fails. He has recess appointment power. If Mitch McConnell recesses the Senate for 10 minutes, he can put Brett Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court for 4 years without Senate confirmation. Because that is in the Constitution. And I mean, the president has this power. That would, of course, be playing really hardball. That is a possibility.
I think it's time for that. I think it's time. I can't tell you how many times in the last 72 hours I have either screamed or just been very ticked off at whatever I was listening or watching. I've had enough of this. It's time for these Republicans to become men and say, damn you, if you're not here in 15 minutes, we're voting.
Absolutely.
It's their game. It's not. I mean, when you look at the history of Supreme Court justice nominations, it is so damn lopsided that unless you're young and believe the media, you're shaking your head like we are.
Absolutely.
How does this keep happening? You know, maybe the torches ought to be at the network headquarters, or maybe at their owner's headquarters. It's getting to that point.
Yeah, it's getting late, and I think it's from my perspective as a foreigner looking to America as what used to be before Obama and before the Bushes. I mean, America was the beacon of freedom in the world, not in just a free world, but it was the beacon of freedom in the world, and that beacon. Obama tried to put it out, and I say it's about time that America took back America and put the Constitution in government again, because the Constitution has been eroded and eroded and eroded, and when you see where America has ended up today with this simple thing of getting a new Supreme Court justice that will put the American Constitution back in power. When you see what he is dragged through, and you know, Hutch, this is not the end of it.
No,
more is to come. I saw some tweets just before we came on that there's another case which they cooked together. Trying to smear the good name of this man.
You know what? And we're almost out of time, or I wouldn't interrupt you, but I'll tell you something. At the end of this hearing, I am so sick and tired of these phony accusations that go all the way back to Bork and Clarence Thomas and how many others, Mitt Romney, I mean, all of them. The dirty dogs in the Republican Party tried to say that McCain, who I can't stand, had a half-black child out of wedlock. Totally unfounded. But at the end of the day, when the dust clears, nothing ever happens to these accusers. At the end of the day, somebody ought to go to prison. It either ought to be Brett Kavanaugh for being a sexual predator, or it ought to be the woman that accused him falsely. Somebody ought to go to prison. There ought to be more at stake here than just coming out and saying whatever you want about Herman Cain, and he pulls out of the race, and then they disappear. 7, 8 women coming in accusing Trump, and when it's all said and done, none of them go to jail.
Yeah, and I mean, I know we're running out of time. Like racism, the Me Too movement had some leeway. Matt Lauer, Harvey Weinstein, all these perverts, they needed to be uncovered. But it has become too easy when a woman can step forward and say, give any allegations, and that allegation destroys a man's life. Right. Women, you have to stand together with real men, because you have fathers, you have sons, you have brothers. And do you really want to make it this easy to destroy a man's life?
This guy is at the pinnacle of the legal career. There's no better place to go than he's been able to go. And his two daughters and his wife have to listen to the sexual predator party and all these deviants in the Democrat Party stop talking about swinging dildos around. Little girls.
Absolutely disgusting. And I mean, the accuser in this case, she can't say who else was at this infamous party. She can't say exactly what happened. She can't say what date it was.
And I mean, Bill Clinton was caught raping a woman and nothing happens, and she's still alive, and she's still willing to testify. Juanita Broderick.
Yeah, exactly. And this is not good enough. I mean, you can't come out 35, 40 years later and say this and that happened. Well, I don't know exactly the date. I don't know who else were there. I don't know even where it was.
And you know what, too? The other thing is that now I don't know about the boys of today because the government has destroyed pretty much the way I grew up. But I know in my day, every boy worth his salt was out there chasing skirts. That's what you do. That's what God did to us. God put that in us to procreate. And I don't know if that doesn't make sense to anybody, but it does to me. You know, this is something we're going against nature here.
Yeah,
and that's never good.
I also think that every decent boy that has been brought up with a good father figure also learns to respect the ladies and defend the ladies. And, I think that is a lot of what is missing today, because the good old family structures, they've been eroded by the same socialists that is throwing this muck at Kavanaugh.
Right. All right. Well, Norway, another excellent program, but I know it's about 7:30 in the morning there.
Oh, it's not that bad.
You got to get up and milk the cows. So
I got to go milk the cows. It's been a lovely show, Hutch, and of course we sorely ran out of time again, but I think we covered a lot of ground tonight, and it's been an absolute pleasure doing the show with you, and thanks to Kerry for calling. I wish you guys would call more. I love talking with you, and we learn a lot from you listeners. And please remember, share the show. That is also a way of donating. And I am at Norway for Trump on Twitter and Gab, and have a blessed weekend. Have a blessed week.
Thank you, sir. And I want to thank everybody for listening live. Please share the show. Make sure you share the time that the show starts. The poll was a bust. I couldn't get it to work. I will fix that for the future. That being said, it seems like some want us to stay here, some want us to go earlier. I'm going to reserve judgment on this until a later time. We're going to keep it right here at 8:30 for right now. Norway, I want a special thanks to you because of how late you stay up to be able to connect with our audience. They love you. I love you. History B, great contribution. I'll be talking to you in the future. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr. On Twitter, Facebook, MeWe, Gab. I got to get out there on MeWe a little bit more, and I got to start weaning myself off of Twitter. I just hate to do that. I got a pretty good following, so I'm not doing it right now, but in the future, we may do that. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for letting us into your life for 1 hour. God bless.
God bless.
What is that?
Södra Norge, Sons of Norway.
God bless, ladies and gentlemen. See you on Wednesday.
What the fuck, bro?
You got Obama phone?
Yes, everybody in Cleveland, no minority got Obama phone. Keep Obama in president, you know? He gave us a phone. Whoa, got Obama phone. Obama phone. Got Obama phone. You got low income, gave us a phone. Got Obama phone. Obama phone. Got Obama phone. You got low income, gave us a phone.
I don't pay roses on YouTube, cause I wanna be the bitch to whoop your ass. Big Romney, whoop your ass. You ain't shit. Every time I see you on a motherfucking commercial, I wanna TV said it ain't even mine, nigga.
Fuck, bro.
You got Obama phone?
Yes, everybody in Cleveland, no minority got Obama phone. Keep Obama in president, you know? He gave us a phone. Whoa, got Obama phone. Obama phone. Got Obama phone. You got low income, gave us a phone. Got Obama phone. Obama phone. Got Obama phone. You got low income, gave us a phone.
I don't pay roses on YouTube, cause I wanna be the bitch to whoop your ass. Big Romney, whoop your ass. You ain't shit. Every time I see you on a motherfucking commercial, I wanna TV said it ain't even mine, nigga.
Fuck, bro.
Our movement is about replacing a failed and corrupt political establishment with a new government controlled by you, the American people. The Washington establishment and the financial and media corporations that fund it exist for only one reason: to protect and enrich itself. The establishment has trillions of dollars at stake in this election. For those who control the levers of power in Washington and for the global special interests, they partner with these people that don't have your good in mind. Our campaign represents a true existential threat like they haven't seen before. This is not simply another 4-year election. This is a crossroads in the history of our civilization that will determine whether or not we, the people, reclaim control over our government. The political establishment that is trying to stop us is the same group responsible for our disastrous trade deals, massive illegal immigration, and economic and foreign policies that have bled our country dry. The political establishment has brought about the destruction of our factories and our jobs as they flee to Mexico, China, and other countries all around the world. It's a global power structure that is responsible for the economic decisions that have robbed our working class, stripped our country of its wealth, and put that money into the pockets of a handful of large corporations and political entities. This is a struggle for the survival of our nation. And this will be our last chance to save it. This election will determine whether we're a free nation or whether we have only the illusion of democracy, but are in fact controlled by a small handful of global special interests rigging the system, and our system is rigged. This is reality. You know it, they know it, I know it, and pretty much the whole world knows it. The Clinton machine is at the center of this power structure. We've seen this firsthand in the WikiLeaks documents, in which Hillary Clinton meets in secret with international banks to plot the destruction of U.S. sovereignty in order to enrich these global financial powers, her special interest friends, and her donors. Honestly, she should be locked up. The most powerful weapon deployed by the Clintons is the corporate media, the press. Let's be clear on one thing. The corporate media in our country is no longer involved in journalism. They're a political special interest, no different than any lobbyist or other financial entity with a total political agenda, and the agenda is not for you, it's for themselves. Anyone who challenges their control is deemed a sexist, a racist, a xenophobe. They will lie, and then again, they will do worse than that. They will do whatever is necessary. The Clintons are criminals, remember that. This is well documented. And the establishment that protects them has engaged in a massive cover-up of widespread criminal activity at the State Department and the Clinton Foundation in order to keep the Clintons in power. They knew they would throw every lie they could at me and my family and my loved ones. They knew they would stop at nothing to try to stop me. Nevertheless, I take all of these slings and arrows gladly for you. I take them for our movement so that we can have our country back. I knew this day would arrive. It's only a question of when. And I knew the American people would rise above it and vote for the future they deserve. The only thing that can stop this corrupt machine is you. The only force strong enough to save our country is us. The only people brave enough to vote out this corrupt establishment is you, the American people. Our great civilization has come upon a moment of reckoning. I didn't need to do this, folks, believe me. I built a great company, and I had a wonderful life. I could have enjoyed the fruits and benefit of years of successful business deals and businesses for myself and my family, instead of going through this absolute horror show of lies, deceptions, malicious attacks. Who would have thought? I'm doing it because this country has given me so much, and I feel so strongly that it's my turn to give back to the country that I love. I'm doing this for the people and for the movement, and we will take back this country for you, and we will make America great again.
I hear that Trump train coming, it's rolling through the land. President Trump is going to make America great again. He's going to cut our taxes and the regulations too. He's going to build that wall and turn the snowflakes blue. When Trump was just a candidate, they said he'd never win, but he beat 16 others, and Hillary in the end, it drove the liberals crazy. They nearly lost their minds. They said the Russians must have done it. Heck, even they knew they were lying. They called us all deplorables. I think that's really sad. While they scream obscenities, block the streets, break windows, and burn our flag, it's really quite disgusting. What do they hope to prove? We just love our God and country and that old red white, and blue. Now that Trump is president, everything will be just fine. He's gonna dump Obamacare just in the nick of time, building roads and bridges, and the military too. Taking care of our veterans and all the officers in blue. So now our Constitution and our country will be fine as President Trump moves freedom farther down along the line. Far from socialism, that's where I want to stay. And I'll let that Trump train whistle blow my Obama blues away. And I'll let that Trump train whistle blow my Obama blues away. There it is, Snowflake Blues.
Well, the Democrats say that he can't never win. The Republicans will let another liberal in. His hair is kind of funny, but he knows where he's been. Said that little Marco ain't my friend. He's got $1 billion in his own stakes too. Ain't too many things old Trump can't do. He looks out for people working 9 to 5, and a Trump boy can survive. Trump boy can survive. He knew what shape this country would be without freedom and liberty. So he got on TV, said, vote for me. I know you all really love me. He can build a resort out of a rundown dive, and a Trump boy can survive. A Trump boy can survive. Yeah! Because you can't shut him out and you can't make him run. He's licensed to carry and he's got a loaded gun. Gonna build a wall, so yes sir and ma'am. If you ain't into that, we don't give a damn. He came from New York City to South Alabama and little towns all around this land. And his hair is kinda golden like inside a beehive, but a Trump boy can survive. Trump boy can survive. Well, he had a good friend named Ben Carson. I think he was raised around Detroit, Michigan. He went to school to fill the doctor plan. Trump went to school to be a businessman. But they didn't like Carson because he was a Christian. So Trump says, I'll cause some division. Well, the next thing you know, well, the GOP's hot. They start hitting Trump with all they've got. Well, they'd like to spit some beach nut in McConnell's eyes, cover him with 1,000 flies, but a Trump boy can't survive. Trump boy can't survive. Yeah, because you can't shout him out and you can't make him run. He's licensed to carry and he's got a loaded gun. He's gonna build a wall, so yes sir and ma'am. If you ain't into that, we don't give a damn. There's still time to get out and vote. The Trump train's in hyper mode. And and he's gonna make America great again, 'cause a Trump boy can't survive. A Trump boy can't survive. A Trump boy can't survive. Trump boy can't survive.
Ali. Apprentice.
Now, Corolla, why did your team lose? Now, hold on a second. And by the way...
Interrupt this program for Obama to say something.
My fellow Americans, I'd like to announce that I'm running for President of America as a black man this time. I did some time in jail. I did some crime with Michelle. We stole some fried watermelon. Yippee-yippee-ki-yay. I'm known to smack up a bitch. I got Kool-Aid in the fridge. I never met my kids. Their real dad is Kanye. Guns, yeah, sold them. Old tricks, yeah, told them. Blood splits, yeah, rolled them. Riding nuts, a hook, baby. Hey, I just met you. So please don't tase me. My name's Obama. Was born in Haiti. I still get food stamps. I'm just lazy. I'm still on welfare. So fuck you, pay me. They might arrest you, but you could blame me. They'll roll me over, incarcerate me. If I get unemployed, shit don't faze me. My name's Obama. I roll with Jay-Z. Jeezer? Are you young Jeezer? How'd you get in the White House? I smoke a lot of Newports. I sit a lot on the porch. I stole 2012 Porsche from my neighbor's driveway. I did a lot of drug deals. I killed Osama for trills. I blamed it on Navy SEALs and fucked his bitch sideways. Bro, yeah, I'm holding rocks, weed, meth, heroin, White House garden showing. What you think I'm growing? Daisies? Hey, I'll just smack you. No, it's okay, see. My name's Obama. I'm half Kuwaiti. It's hard to look white. Robin Macy's, give me the FUBU. Don't try to play me. Hey, I just met you. So please don't mace me. My name's Obama. I dance like Swayze. If you live in Detroit, you oughta thank me. My name's Obama. I'm Pakistani. Before I came in the White House, I used to smoke crack. I used to soul crack. I used to roll so black. I was born in Dubai. I'd like to go back. Where's all my hoes at? Take off your clothes and don't talk back. Now, the American people have a clear choice. Would you like to get smacked with a pimp cane or with the back of my hand? It's hard to look white. I'm smacking ladies, so it's no wonder y'all crackers hate me. Hey, I just met you, and this is crazy. I steal your Hummer and throwed your baby. Sandusky touched the boy, or so they say. See, my name's Obama. Chicken is tasty. Before I came in the White House, I used to smoke crack. I used to soul crack. I used to roll so black. All you haters don't like me, lick my ball sack. Y'all haters fall back. So fuck you, pay me. I mean, do we really need another black guy on unemployment right now? I'm sorry, I get that from my mother. She's a typical white.
All right, folks, thanks for hanging in with me. Thanks to Norway. He's still up. I see him in the chat room over there. We'll be back Wednesday with Jack in the mountain for another great show, and then the panel on Friday. God bless everybody. Have a great evening. And get through to Wednesday. See ya.